Thank you.
Senators are anxiously waiting to see the FBI's report on its investigation of Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. At the same time, key lawmakers say they have been confronted by angry protesters over how they plan to vote. Nancy Cordes reports from Capitol Hill.
What do you think, Margaret?
Undecided Senator Susan Collins was surrounded for the first time today by a police detail as other Republicans tried to shrug off the protesters who trail them everywhere as they await the FBI's findings.
I don't care how many members they chase, how many people they harass here in the halls. I want to make one thing perfectly clear. We will not be intimidated by these people.
So far, the FBI has interviewed Mark Judge, Leland Kaiser, and Patrick Smith, the people Christine Blasey Ford says were at the house the night she was sexually assaulted. Agents have also spoken to the friends Kavanaugh referred to as Timmy and Squee in his high school calendars. But the White House has reportedly blocked the FBI from talking to the two key players, Ford and Kavanaugh.
You would not block
the Senate Judiciary Committee.
That's not.
White House officials were vague when asked about that today.
You'd have to talk to the FBI, but the FBI.
But you guys dictate the terms
we're
of the
not micromanaging anything.
But you
Republicans, meanwhile, have stepped up their scrutiny of Blasey Ford, releasing this sworn statement from a man who said he was Ford's boyfriend for 6 years. He claims that despite her testimony, Ford never expressed a fear of closed quarters to him, and that he once witnessed Dr. Ford help her roommate prepare for a potential polygraph exam.
Have you ever given tips or advice to somebody who was looking to take a polygraph test?
Never.
Ford's former roommate quickly issued this statement. I have never had Christine Blasey Ford or anybody else help with any polygraph exam I have taken at any time.
Nancy Cordes joins me now from Capitol Hill. Nancy, Senate Judiciary Committee ranking member Dianne Feinstein said in a statement that an investigation without Ford or Kavanaugh interviews would not be credible. So do we know why they haven't been contacted so far?
Well, what's been reported, Tanya, is that the FBI has been constrained in who it can interview and who it can't. And when White House officials have been questioned about this, they've been very reticent to tell us exactly what the FBI's instructions are, because you have lawyers for Deborah Ramirez and lawyers for Christine Blasey Ford saying they have 10 or 20 people who they think that the FBI should interview, but that those people haven't been contacted, and their clients for sure haven't been, well, in the case of Blasey Ford, haven't been contacted. We do know that Deborah Ramirez did sit down with the FBI for a couple of hours this weekend. So Democrats are very concerned about that. They say, you know, what does it matter that the FBI is talking to some of the people involved if they don't talk to the two people at the center of this story? But many Republicans argue that Blasey Ford and Brett Kavanaugh have already been questioned about this incident extensively in that hearing for hours last week, and they believe that in the interest of time, you don't need to go back and re-interview them. But there is some key evidence that may end up not being taken into account. For example, Blasey Ford says she has therapist notes that she is willing to hand over to the FBI. She won't give it to the Senate Judiciary Committee, but she will give it to the FBI. Her lawyers say they're willing to do that if they ever hear back from the FBI.
And Nancy, now there is debate over making the FBI report public once it's completed. What are both sides saying about this?
Well, you know, there's a lot of back and forth about this, and it's not exactly something that comes down along party lines, because there is this assumption that even if all of this information is kept confidential, that senators, once they look at it, will immediately begin leaking details that they think benefit one side or the other. So you do have some senators actually on both sides saying that they think that it would be beneficial if there was at least some kind of summary that was released to the public so that you wouldn't have this selective leaking situation. And even Republicans who didn't necessarily favor an FBI investigation, they say, look, if there's evidence that is beneficial to Brett Kavanaugh that will help him clear his name, then we have an obligation to put that information out, to make it public. So there's a lot of discussion about this. I wouldn't be surprised at the end of the day if there isn't some kind of document that is made public. But of course, what's in that document all depends on who writes it up and what side they're on.
As we've been discussing a little bit today at the campaign-style rally Tuesday, President Trump mocked Blasey Ford's testimony. Senator Jeff Flake called his comments appalling. Senators Collins and Murkowski also slammed the remarks. So my question, Nancy, is these are crucial senators whose votes are needed to confirm Kavanaugh. Is there a concern that Republicans will lose these moderate votes over comments like these?
Well, I think that there's a general recognition that those comments weren't helpful in the court of public opinion. But when it comes to Flake and Murkowski and Collins, they've made it pretty clear that while they didn't like what the president had to say, that's not what they're going to base their decision on. They have enough experience with this president to know that he's going to say all kinds of things that they find offensive and that they have been willing to speak out against time and time again. They say that they are basing this decision on Kavanaugh's judicial record and on whatever is contained in the FBI report. So no, I don't think that Republicans are concerned that somehow Susan Collins might go from a lean yes to a lean no on Brett Kavanaugh based on what the president had to say. But certainly you had a lot of senators from the right and the left, and those undecided senators included, who said that it was inappropriate and offensive.
I also have a question, though, about these moderate senators. Are they at all taking into account his performance during his testimony? Because there are some conservatives that are saying, regardless of the sexual assault allegations, he did not behave in a judicial manner. Is that anything that you're hearing that these moderate senators may be taking into account?
Sure, although you have also heard them say that they too would be angry and frustrated if they had been accused of something that they didn't believe that they had done. And so I think it's very complicated, and I think it is only once they do vote that they will finally tell us, well, here is exactly what factored into my decision. Certainly you've got a lot of Democrats out there saying over and over again he didn't display a judicial temperament, that he came across as overly political, that he seemed to endorse conspiracy theories, and that all of these things aren't becoming of somebody who wants to be a Supreme Court justice. But whether that is going to be in the end what sways someone like Susan Collins or Lisa Murkowski, it's going to be very hard to say, because Collins and Murkowski in particular have been pretty tight-lipped over the past week or so. They've taken to avoiding us, and it was difficult to even get anywhere near Susan Collins on Wednesday now that she's got this police detail with her. She did have a few words to say about President Trump and what she thought of his comments about Blasey Ford at that rally. But other than that, they have taken the approach lately that less is more, and that they're going to hold their fire until after they see what is contained in this FBI report.
The two most popular senators on Capitol Hill at the moment.
No question.
Nancy.